Okay, in this video, I'm gonna review one of, if not the best, diet tracking or macro tracking apps that is out there, which kind of says a lot because it's only been around since 2021. And I put that distinction of best or one of the best really sheerly based on user feedback and reviews that I've been currently seeing. I've been watching this thing for some time. I have a history using diet apps like I'm sure many of you guys have. Not a big app user at this point in my life, and I'll probably get into that a little bit. However, I definitely see their immense value, more so in the diet logging app field. One of my issues with just fitness and health apps in general is that there's a lot of variables that make these things not that accurate in my personal opinion. That definitely goes with diet logging apps. Instead of relying on just cookie cutter algorithms and calculations that are spitting out a number, which still is good and gives someone a basic baseline of kind of how they're eating and their eating patterns, this thing actually regulates and adjusts according to your metabolism. Of course, this is not totally accurate, and the people of this app understand that, but they're doing their best through the algorithm to understand the current science that we understand with body composition, the way our basal metabolic rate fluctuates, but also more importantly, how the user interfaces with such an app. Because even if you're not perfect, at the end of the day, if you're logging your calories a certain way, and you're logging your weight, this thing will fluctuate from week to week and not just give you some dramatic drops in calories or relying on you to actually lower the calories or increase your activity level based on some sort of smartwatch. Which is also a unique thing with this particular app is that it does not relate back to any kind of activity or physical activity tracker, and there's actually a good rationale that they have for that, and it is because, according to them, and I think many others, is that feedback is not really that accurate and really ultimately at the end of the day, adjusting your calories and understanding your basal metabolic rate. One thing you will also see when you're in this app right away is that this thing is very clean. There's no ads, nor should there be. But of course, if you're paying for it, I'm not gonna mention any names, but some of these companies, even if you're paying for it, still might give you some subtle ads and maybe also share your personal information. But back to what really separates this app compared to the others is primarily found in its tagline. So you can see it really bills itself or sells itself as the macro tracker that adjusts to your metabolism. So basically what they're doing compared to the other apps that are just gonna take your height, weight, activity level, goals, etc. It'll spit out some calculation and some basic cookie cutter template model of what to follow. What they're doing, of course, is also an algorithm incorporated. This is other kind of math, but they're also assuming your basic behavioral patterns on if you're hitting the goals, not hitting the goals. It's accounting for that you don't necessarily have to always be accurate. If you're weighing yourself at least weekly, and no matter what that little initial baseline calories are, week to week, they will adjust it and regulate it based on the changes in what you're doing. So even though it's not really plugging in and knowing exactly your physical activity level, if it has an idea you're being somewhat physically active, it has your height and weight, and I said your gender, it'll give you baseline calories. And if that is off in some way, shape, or form, if you're losing weight or gaining weight, it will adjust for those things. So if you did, let's say, a really hard day, a really hard week of working out or whatever, etc., and maybe that did have an impact positively or negatively on your metabolism, we should kind of see that based on your weight as you're kind of progressing. So we could be here for another 10 minutes getting into the science of that, but I would actually defer you guys to some of their articles. I'll link them down below on how really the heart of their algorithm essentially works. To really sum up what I'm saying here, based on what I'm seeing, this thing is really factoring in, pun intended, all the major important components of a successful dietary approach of gaining weight and losing weight. And that is understanding individual behavior and adherence, but also factoring in, again, pun intended, the very sensitive fluctuations in your day-to-day metabolism. If you didn't do that, it's not like you wouldn't gain or lose weight by having some sort of metric of tracking calories. Of course, that would work. What this is doing is just makes it a little more easier on you and should be a little more of a smoother transition to getting your goals from point A to point B. Now you can customize this, but really the heart of this is in their coached program style. So they have 3 program styles when you sign up. There's the coach style, which is what I did because I personally am not worried too much about specific macros, more so calories. That's where I focus as far as gaining weight and losing weight. Of course, maybe some things I do want constant, but that's where I kind of say, as I suggested, it's literally like you have a personal nutrition coach that is dialing or increasing calories and possibly macros depending on what they're seeing. Then there's the collaborative approach, which for those of you guys who want to set your own macros and maybe do some personal experimentation, you can set your macros and then the program will just adjust your calorie budget based on your goals and of course your progress with the algorithm. Then if you want to go individual, and this could be for like a period of time because you can always go in there and actually change the program at any point in time if you guys want to. You can go in there and just go manual. But for me, in my opinion, I think it's just best to actually, really get the most when you're paying for it and going with the coach style or at the very least collaborative style. Then as you progress on the options here, you then choose how you want to distribute your calories, how much of a ceiling or how much of a floor you guys want with the calories. that's kind of the nuts and bolts on how to get yourself up and running, but just here are some summary pros that I found using this system compared to others. Big pro with this that the creators and just engineers about this really want to dive into was just making logging food very easy. And of course, that goes into just overall adherence of using the app, because if it makes it very cumbersome, if you're not going to use it, that's not much success. So they want to make logging foods very seamless and easy. They do boast one of the largest dietary libraries that's out there, and they make sure it's also very accurate. So unlike, say, MyFitnessPal, some that is relying upon just user feedback or generated information, they have their own library that's growing, and it's pretty extensive. You can do your typical stuff like scanning a barcode, works for most of the things I've tried so far. You can of course go in there and enter your own, save it to your foods. They even have an AI generated system where you simply can kind of talk into and describe what your meal was, and I found that somewhat kind of accurate. Some things it wasn't, but I can actually talk it out. It came up somewhat accurate if you're totally lazy. But what I really like about one of the big pros with this, aside from of course the way it's regulating and adjusting your calories, is that, especially the way it was kind of sold to me when I first heard about this and learned about it, is that even if you kind of fail on logging your calories or hitting your macros or whatever, because that's like me, sometimes I get in the habit of doing it. And oftentimes, even in the past when I was being very specific, I didn't really know, and it caused me a little bit of mini stress. Like, was I over or under, or you felt kind of defeated, like you forgot what you did, or even if you just felt lazy, like I just forgot, I don't feel like adding that today. If you're consistent on your patterns, yes, your calories might not be totally accurate, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because if you're logging yourself with your weight, it will regulate what you did as far as your calorie ceilings. I would say easily the biggest cons, aside from if you don't even like these apps in the first place, one is going to be the price. So you have like 3 different price tiers, from just going month to month from $11.99 all up to kind of a shorter long-term plan if you go for the full year. That's where I'd say, again, not trying to sell you guys this, that's where that trial promo code, which I don't get any kickback on this if you guys do just try the code out and cancel it, but that's where I think a lot of these things are valuable, because on the 7-day trial, you don't get a chance to really see the check-in point until you get to after the 7 days. So the promo code just extends it out another 7 days. But one of the biggest cons is going to be there's no free option for this. And to their pushback is this is an evolving algorithm. There's actually a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. They have these new kind of modules that are set up. You guys might have saw some clips of that already. That's a brand new feature. It is definitely obvious when you kind of read their layout on their website, the user reviews, the feedback, the crazy growth they've had since 2021, that the company obviously cares about the product. It's really gonna be up to you if you feel like it's gonna be worth it for the amount of money you're spending. But if you're looking for just like a free, straightforward app to kind of get yourself going, establish a baseline, then there's plenty of apps out there. The one I've defaulted to for a lot of people has been Lose It. You know, that's a really simple free one. The only downside is you're gonna get text messages, you're gonna get bombarded with spam every time you go on there. If you don't mind that, just hitting the X on, like say, like the Lose It app, and you just wanna kind of get going on just understanding how you're eating, maybe getting a pattern of eating, then something like that's gonna make, of course, more sense than investing in a subscription service, which I, for one, am not a big fan of. So would I use this and recommend it? Personally, if you are someone that does like metrics and you wanna stick to a diet, I do think diet apps can be very valuable. However, I think they can be a little damaging and kind of crazy for some people. I'm a little old school in the sense that, you know, dieting, of course, there's a lot of discipline involved, and I'm not perfect at it either. But really, if I want to gain a little weight, I'm eating a little more, especially in the autumn here and getting into winter time. I'm always putting on like about 10 pounds. For me, it's a little more natural. When it starts to get warmer out, I try and drop the weight. I don't want to eat as much. I also don't have as big of an appetite. So it's easy for me to say that. But if I do want to say really cut down and get down to say lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, do something that's to me is harder than bulking for most people. To do that, sometimes that's where these apps really come in handy. And they are in some ways kind of fun and kind of tracking it. I would say this is more fun and forgiving compared to the other ones, which are not fluctuating so often week to week, and you can kind of feel defeated. When you're doing this, it's not, again, that I'm encouraging you not to be accurate, but this at least is kind of having that provided that buffer that if you aren't accurate, their foods aren't on point, it will adjust it. So that's kind of one of the biggest things I've seen for a lot of the feedback online as well. But that's it though, guys. If you guys use it and didn't think it was worth it, definitely let me know if you guys like it. Drop it down. If you have any other questions that I didn't answer here, I'll be happy to answer those for you. And I'll see you guys on the next video.